A tremor ran through Vanaheim, a vibration deeper than any Njord, the wind and sea god, had ever summoned. It wasn't a storm, nor a tidal surge, but a tremor of prophecy, a premonition so stark and chilling that it painted the usually vibrant halls of Frey with an icy dread. Frey, the most radiant of the Vanir gods, his hair the color of a summer harvest moon, felt the weight of the prophecy settle on his broad shoulders like a shroud. He wasn't just a god of sunshine and bountiful harvests, he was the lifeblood of Midgard, the human realm. Every raindrop that kissed the thirsty earth, every ray of sunlight that nurtured the crops, pulsed with his essence. Yet, now a single, chilling note hung in the air: Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, a cataclysmic war that would shatter even Asgard's mighty walls. And the prophecy, a cruel jester, hinted at a singular combat, a duel upon which the fate of the world would hinge. Frey, however, was woefully unprepared. The weapon that once hung proudly at his hip, a sword forged in the heart of a dying star, wasn't just any blade. It was a living guardian, a tempestuous entity that danced with its wielder in a deadly ballet. But love, a capricious and often cruel deity, had intervened. Gerd, a giantess of breathtaking beauty, with eyes like glacial pools and hair like a raven's wing, had captivated Frey. In a moment of impulsive adoration, he'd surrendered the sword, the very essence of his power, as a token of his affection. Regret, a bitter serpent, coiled around Frey's heart. He'd gambled the fate of the world on a fleeting glance, a whispered promise. Now, every stolen moment with Gerd felt laced with unspoken questions. Did she know? Did she understand the weight of his sacrifice, the shadow of Ragnarok looming over their stolen happiness? Or was she content in their blissful ignorance, a beautiful flower oblivious to the storm brewing on the horizon? The silence gnawed at Frey. One night, under a tapestry of stars shimmering like scattered diamonds, he confessed the prophecy to Gerd. Her face, usually the color of fresh snow at dawn, drained of all color. Tears welled up in her sapphire eyes, mirroring the despair that choked Frey. Without the sword, she whispered, her voice trembling like a leaf caught in a winter gale, "You are defenseless." The protector of Midgard, condemned to fall at the hands of a fire giant at Ragnarok. Frey felt a cold dread seep into his bones. Was this their tragic fate then? Was there no way to reclaim the sword, to undo his reckless act of love? But then, a flicker of hope ignited in Gerd's eyes, a spark so faint it could have been a trick of the starlight. There might be, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Legends whisper of a hidden forge deep within the realm of the dwarves, a forge where even the gods' weapons are reforged, but the price for such a service is rumored to be beyond exorbitant. A surge of determination coursed through Frey. He wouldn't let his love, his duty, or the fate of the world remain hostage to a prophecy. He would venture into the treacherous realm of the dwarves, face whatever trials awaited him, and reclaim his weapon, even if it meant jeopardizing everything he held dear. The journey would be a perilous one. The dwarves were a proud and insular race, notoriously stubborn and distrustful of the gods, especially the Vanir. They were masters of metal and fire, their forges echoing with the clang of hammers and the hiss of molten metal. But Frey, fueled by desperation and a flicker of hope rekindled by Gerd, wouldn't be deterred. He donned his enchanted armor, each scale shimmering with the promise of a summer storm. Gullinbursti, his magnificent golden boar, snorted impatiently, sensing the urgency in his master's heart. Bidding farewell to Gerd, a silent promise hanging heavy in the air, Frey rode towards the gaping maw of the mountain that marked the entrance to Svartalfheim, the dwarven realm. The air grew thick and heavy as Frey crossed the threshold. Sunlight seemed to struggle to penetrate the perpetual twilight that cloaked the dwarven domain. Eerie shadows danced on the cavern walls, and the only sound was the rhythmic clanging of unseen hammers deep within the mountain's heart. Frey navigated a labyrinth of tunnels, the air thick with the acrid smell of burning coal and sweat. Finally, he emerged into a vast cavern, its ceiling lost in the inky darkness. In the center, a forge blazed with an infernal light, casting grotesque shapes on the hunched figures of dwarven smiths. Their beards, matted with grime and scorched by years of unrelenting heat, flowed down their chests like molten silver. Their eyes, like molten gold, flickered towards Frey with suspicion and a hint of avarice. The leader, Brock, a dwarf with a beard that could rival a blizzard and a single, beady eye that glinted with an unsettling intelligence, stepped forward. His voice, rough as granite, grated against the cavern walls. "Evanir God graces us with his presence. What brings you to Svartalfheim, Frey, son of Njord?" Frey, his voice firm despite the tremor of apprehension in his heart, explained his predicament. He spoke of the prophecy of Ragnarok and the desperate need to reclaim his lost sword. He recounted his love for Gerd, the sacrifice he made, and the legend of the hidden forge. The dwarves listened in stoic silence, their faces unreadable. Finally, Brock spoke, his voice dripping with a cruel amusement. "A noble tale, Frey. Love and sacrifice, a worthy cause for a god to visit the sons of stone. But our forges burn not for sentimentality. We deal in deeds, not desires." Frey's heart sank. He knew the dwarves' reputation for their love of bargains. What price would they demand for the reforging of his weapon, a weapon that held the fate of the world in its balance? Brock continued, his voice a low rumble. "The price for reforging a god's weapon is no small thing, Frey. We demand a piece of Asgard itself, a tribute worthy of the power we shall unleash." Frey's breath caught in his throat. Asgard, the realm of the Aesir, was inviolable. To give up a piece of it would be an act of treason, a spark that could ignite a war between the two pantheons before Ragnarok even arrived. There must be another way, he pleaded, desperation sharpening his voice. "I can offer you treasures, gold beyond your wildest dreams, anything." The dwarves roared with laughter, a sound that echoed through the cavern like an avalanche. Their laughter died down, replaced by a chilling silence. "Treasures," Brock sneered. "We dwarves have enough gold to fill the ocean and jewels to rival the stars. What we desire is something far more valuable, a humiliation of the Aesir, a crack in their supposedly impenetrable walls." Frey felt a cold dread grip him. He was trapped. The fate of the world, his love for Gerd, it all hinged on this impossible choice. Could he condemn Asgard to appease the dwarves' pride? Or was there another way, a hidden path that could rewrite his destiny? As Frey stood there, wrestling with his conscience, a voice echoed from the back of the cavern. It was a young dwarf, his beard barely a wisp compared to the others, his eyes filled with a spark of rebellion. "There is another way," the young dwarf said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But it is a path fraught with danger, a path that could cost you dearly." Hope flickered in Frey's heart. Here was a chance, a gamble perhaps, but a chance nonetheless. He turned to the young dwarf, his eyes pleading. "Tell me," he said, his voice laced with desperation. "What is this path?" The young dwarf stepped forward, a mischievous glint in his eye. He leaned in close to Frey and began to whisper, his voice barely audible over the rhythmic clang of the hammers. The plan he revealed was audacious, a test that would push Frey to his very limits. It was a path that could lead to victory or to utter ruin. But for Frey, there was no other choice. He had to take the gamble for the fate of the world, for his love, and for his own redemption.